Welcome to The Next Word. I'm your host, Christine Warnke, and we have two very special guests. Irena Chalupa, the current president of the Ukrainian National Women's League of America of the DMV Chapter, and in our second half, we'll hear from Pedro Pizano, an attorney and international human rights activist. In our first segment with Irene, she'll talk to us about what is occurring in Ukraine and the power of sisterhood in diplomacy. The Ukrainian people, including the children in Ukraine, rely on the stand of the shoulders of these amazing Ukrainian American women. So Irene, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for inviting me, Christine.
So let's start from the beginning, where you started. You were born in Ukraine.
No, actually.
You were not.
I was born in Poland. I was born in what used to be East Prussia. At the end of the World War II, there was a huge resettlement of Ukrainian people from southeastern Poland to northeastern Poland. So the communists chased the Germans out and they resettled the Ukrainians in those territories, right underneath the border with Königsberg, which is now Kaliningrad. Yeah.
What motivated you, of course, to get into journalism, and which is sort of, you're a broadcaster, but you've been involved in so many other aspects of journalism, but...
Well, I didn't really study journalism. My husband, who's a very good journalist and much more seasoned than I am, told me that in Great Britain, where he's from, nobody studies journalism. You study history, you study literature, and if you write well, you become a journalist. And so I was a psych and English major, and I just sort of fell into it. I was always involved in the Ukrainian community. I had a bit of a talent for putting words together, and I had an opportunity to meet some people from Radio for Europe, Radio Liberty, and I was very bold in my desire, and I said, why don't you give me a job? And they made me an offer. I flew out to Munich. That's where the radios were based in those days. And I did I think a month trial. And at the end, they gave me a contract for 2 years. And at the end of those 2 years, I became a permanent member of the Ukrainian service. And that's how it all began.
It all began. But before that, you were a Fulbright scholar.
Yes, but that was after my career at the radio came to a bit of an end. Yes, I spent 1.5 years in Ukraine as a Fulbright scholar. Yeah.
And of course now you're here and very active in the Women's League, the Ukrainian National Women's League, and the founding, which you're celebrating the 50th anniversary.
No, the centennial. We celebrated our centennial. Yes.
Okay, centennial. But it was. How did you get involved with the league?
Well, I had. From 1985, I had been living abroad. I worked and lived first in Munich, then in Ukraine, and then in the Czech Republic in Prague. I kind of followed the radio as they moved around. And then I came to Washington. We were supposed to beef up our journalistic presence in Washington, but then the company got a new president and he didn't agree with the original plan, so basically that whole plan was scuppered. But here I was in a new community, getting to sort of know the lay of the land. I knew some people here that I had been friends with for many, many, many years, and I needed something to do in a community. I had always been involved in the Ukrainian American community doing one thing or another, and I thought, well, what can I do here? What's here? And there was this Ukrainian National Women's League of America chapter. It was kind of dormant. Most of the membership was my mother's age, and so another friend who shall be nameless, kind of coerced me into becoming the branch head, and I was completely unprepared. I really didn't know much about the organization. I knew about the work of the organization, but I didn't know about its structure and organization and the reporting that one had to do to the national executive and things like that. So I was kind of thrown into the swimming pool, and I had to sort of come up and tread water and do the best that I could. And I've been head of the branch now for well over 5 years. And we're just reviving it, trying to get more members, younger members, and the nature of the organization, the kind of work that we do has also profoundly changed in the last
Absolutely.
20, 30 years, you know, and particularly since 22 as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Significantly since
Yes.
2022. So we talk about that because since the war has started, your work, your whole shifted tremendously.
Well, everybody, you know, you have to understand that when the organization was set up 100 years ago, nobody knew that there was a place called Ukraine.
Right.
Ukraine was divided, half of it was under Poland, the other half had just been absorbed into the Bolshevik Empire, what eventually became the Soviet Union. And there was a big international women's congress taking place in America, and a group of Ukrainian women came and wanted their voices to be heard. They wanted to be represented, but they were rejected because they did not have a country. You know, they did not have a sovereign state behind them, and so Ukrainian women don't take no as an answer. So they came back and they organized themselves. They merged 5 different groups into one, and they became an unofficial Ukrainian voice in America, because Ukraine didn't have a voice really up until 1991.
Wow.
When it became independent and the Soviet Union ultimately fell apart. So people didn't really know what Ukraine was. Every time I told somebody I'm Ukrainian, oh, you're Russian, you know, and then you have to go into this whole explanation of how 2 different people, actually Ukrainians and Ukraine existed way before the proto-state, way before Russia ever came to be. I mean, and there were just forests in Moscow when Ukraine, Kiev, was a big player in the Middle Ages. So that is something that's gotten a lot easier since Ukraine became independent. And of course, the war is a terrible thing, but a lot of people have learned what Ukraine is and what Ukraine is capable of because of this terrible war that Russia has unjustifiably unleashed against Ukraine. So.
We're going to, on the second half, we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on with the children, but I know you've had some children programs, children to children programs, and can you talk, I mean?
A couple of years ago, 2023 I believe, our organization, the UNWLA, launched Return Ukraine's Children initiative. The Russians have not just been destroying Ukrainian cities and killing people, they have also been stealing children. They've kidnapped anywhere from 20 to 40,000 children, and basically they're doing what the Ottomans used to do with the Janissaries, you know, taking young kids and re-educate them and turn them into Russians, have them deny their heritage, forget their heritage. And the Russian ombudsman for children, her name is Maria Belova-Lvova, is on record bragging about how she adopted a young boy from Mariupol and how she brainwashed him to hate all things Ukrainian. She says that he used to listen to Ukrainian songs, troll the Ukrainian internet, and he hated Russia, and she worked on him until he grew to embrace the Russian motherland. So, I mean, they're terribly cynical and horrible about it, yes. So there are now many organizations, well, not many, but several organizations that are working towards for the return of these Ukrainian children, because this is a war crime. This is not, civilized people don't do this sort of stuff. And so our organization has had several events. Now that Congress is back to work, we're going to go and deliver some literature to them and lobby for them to support several resolutions that are being looked at to just to bring this issue to the forefront and to condemn Russia for doing this. One of the things that we have done the last 2 summers is something called Children Praying for Children, and so I also teach in the Ukrainian school, and I wrote a prayer for Ukrainian kids.
Right.
So we have this event that is co-sponsored by the Ukrainian embassy, and people who are involved in this campaign of returning Ukraine's children are also invited. And we talk about, this horrible war crime, and the kids also say these prayers, and they also say little, good wishes to the kids that are taken away from their families and parents, and just as a sign of support that Ukrainian children here are praying for those children.
That's
and hoping
wonderful.
that they will be able to come home.
That's wonderful. Because you're in the DMV, you also have the ability to go to Congress.
Yes.
And there is a Ukrainian caucus?
Yes, there's a Ukrainian caucus. We have two lobbying groups here, sort of lobby offices. There's the Ukrainian National Information Service, which is the information office of the Ukrainian Congress Committee of America. It's an umbrella organization that many Ukrainian American organizations are part of. And then there's another lobbying office, an advocacy office from an organization called Razum for Ukraine. So we do many things together. And the Ukrainian National Women's League of America also was one of the co-founders of something called the Ukraine Action Summit, Coalition for Ukraine, Ukrainian American Coalition for Ukraine, and they have biannual summits here. The last one was just last month, and it was extremely well attended. 700 people descend from all over America.
Oh, that's great.
They have training sessions, panel discussions, and they lobby their elected officials.
Okay, that's perfect. Going back to what you talked about, young people and younger women, bringing them in, but what have you all done to transform and maybe bring younger women into the organization and have them be your advocates, not just politically, but also bridging the cultural divides and is that something you
we live in America, and assimilation is a very powerful thing. So hanging on to your language, your heritage, is problematic. You really have to work at it. America is a great big sea, and it's very easy to sort of sink in it. The younger generation, younger people, they're all media savvy. They're, everybody's into social media. They don't necessarily speak Ukrainian very well anymore. So we've had to sort of find activities that will be interesting for them. We are increasingly doing more and more work in the English language, simply because people don't understand Ukrainian anymore, and a lot of things that are also social in nature. What is it? You attract more bees, more flies with honey than anything else. So those kinds of things. But some of the things that we've done are, for example, we do quite a lot of literary events together with the Ukraine House here. So I'm an avid reader, and I belong to several Ukrainian book clubs. And we invite and sponsor writers and poets who come here and talk about their works. Tomorrow, Ukraine House, and together with the Ukrainian National Women's League of America and one other organization, the Shevchenko Scientific Society, will be featuring a historian called Serhiy Plokhy. He from Harvard University. He just recently retired from heading the Ukrainian Institute there, and he'll be talking about a new book that he's written called The Nuclear Age. And he's he's the only person who has ever actually talked about nuclear weapons and the element of fear. Why does everybody want a nuclear weapon now? Because they see what's happening in the world today. They see how nuclear weapons are used to bully weaker, smaller countries, and they feel that if they have a secret nuclear weapon, perhaps countries like Russia will not be so bold in terms of invading them and so forth. So a lot of different things. We do art exhibits, we do public discussions, we do bazaars, and also we fundraise, and we do a lot of advocacy. We have a lot of projects that the organization launched way back in the day. We support Ukrainian students with scholarships. We support elderly Ukrainian women with some financial social help. We try to look after the elderly women here, and
we do a lot.
but of course, everything now is is directed towards supporting Ukraine in its war effort.
Absolutely.
We as an organization can't lobby and can't raise money for weapons, but we raise money for medical supplies. We raise money for special outfits for Ukrainian women, soldiers. We raise money for children of veterans.
No, you've done so much. Unfortunately, I could talk to you for another hour, but we're going to have to take a short break. And but thank you, Irene. Thank you. This is so helpful. And
thank you. And if I could just say a final word. The Ukrainian ambassador who just finished her tenure, Oksana Markarova, every time she was interviewed anywhere, she would always either begin with or end with by thanking the American people for their support of Ukraine. And so I would like to echo that. And if Ukraine didn't have America supporting us and Ukraine in this terrible, unjust war, I think Ukrainians would survive, but they're able to put up a much better fight thanks to American support.
Yes,
so
yes,
thank you.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank you again for sitting down with me. We're going to take a short break, and then we'll be coming back to speak with Pedro Pizano. And thank you again.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Welcome back to The Next Word. I'm your host, Christine Warnke, and it's my honor to introduce our distinguished guest, Pedro Pizano. Pedro Pizano is an international human rights attorney and advocate. He is the director of the John McCain Freedom for Political Prisoners initiative at the McCain Institute, where he leads high-level advocacy to support political prisoners, hostages, and victims of state repression around the world. So Pedro, what an amazing background, and I know you've been in this field for a while, but what inspired you to fight for international human rights? And
thank you.
And thank you for fighting for international human rights. But
thank you for having me, Dr. Warnke. I was born in Colombia, where the practice of hostage-taking was rampant. I still remember the fear that I felt, even though no one in my close family was kidnapped and held for ransom. Mm. And I wanted to lift that fear from others around the world. One of the first things I did when I graduated undergrad was try to free someone in Venezuela who was a union leader. And we got the president of the AFL-CIO to sign a letter, and we freed him. And so that prompted a career in human rights to try to utilize our freedom to help others who don't have it. That's
fabulous. You know, a little going back to the McCain Institute. Of course, I knew Senator John McCain, and he was just an amazing human being. He was. Why was he so though? Why was he so engaged in human rights? But also, of course, we know why prisoners, because he was a war prisoner. But it started under his name, and doing incredible work.
Thank you. Yeah, Senator McCain, we miss him terribly every day. We say that he would be in Ukraine directing planes until the war was won. And every day we try to continue his legacy and his family's legacy for a free, safe, and just world. And as you said, he spent 1,966 days in a prison. And he wouldn't leave until everyone was released. So we're trying to keep that legacy alive, to release other people around the world, including the 19,546 children in Ukraine. That's the official site from the Ukrainian government, but there's estimates, as Irene said, up to 40,000 children have been abducted, who have been taken across the borders. And imagine your children and anyone else's children, Dr. Warnke, taking across the border from Canada. They lose their names. They lose their identities, they're re-educated, and then their mothers have to drive all the way to the polar circle to try to get them back. And this is a real case. There's a case of a young boy called Vlad Rudenko, 16 years old. They went into his house, they arrested him, kidnapped him, held him incommunicado in Crimea for 8 months. His mother had to go through 3 countries to get him. They put her on state TV, had her praise Russia, and only then was he allowed to return.
So he was allowed to return, but that was...
With his mother, yes.
Was that an unusual...
It is very...
In many cases, it's probably an unusual case.
It is very unusual. So there's documented right now, as I said, 19,456 children who have been documented. We don't know their names. We don't know where they are. We don't know what names they have been given by the Russian state. And what we're asking with the submission that we filed before the UN Working Group of Arbitrary Detention, which is a working group of the UN Human Rights Council, is that they be declared as a class to be arbitrarily detained. So they are war crimes, but they're worse than a war crime, right? This is an erasure of an entire generation. This is state hostage taking at a level we haven't seen in a very long time. So the International Criminal Court has indicted both President Putin and the person that Irene talked about, bragging about adopting Ukrainian children, but we want a legal finding that all these children, all of them, the 19,456 and any others that they can find, are all of them arbitrarily detained and should be returned immediately to their families.
And you've gone to the United Nations. Let's talk about that. You've done it in collaboration with the Lantos Foundation, and he was a great American, Mr. Lantos, a great human rights advocate. And, talk about that process and your success.
Thank you. Yeah, we're so proud to be part of this mission with the Tom Lantos Commission. We, of course, admire Tom Lantos Foundation. We admire Tom Lantos very much, and they brought together a group of advocates. So it's not only us, it's the Global Magnitsky Justice Campaign headed by Bill Browder, it's the Human Rights Foundation, it's the Foley Foundation, the Lantos Foundation, and ourselves, the McCain Institute, trying to do this. It's a novel case. The working group has never, ever said that a whole class of people are arbitrarily detained. They usually focus on single cases.
Right.
So this would be new. There's a little precedent in the Nicaragua case where there's been 222 people by other experts. Right. So we're asking the UN through its working group to declare that this crime, this war crime, is also a case of arbitrary detention.
And where is it in the process at this point?
So the formal submission happened a couple months ago. Right. They received it, and now it'll take, depending on how they classify it, between 8 months to a year.
Wow.
It's 5 experts. They have a big caseload, and sometimes it can take up to 3 or 4 years. So this is a long-term legal mechanism of accountability, but we need accountability now. Today, there's the Secretary of the Army in Ukraine trying to negotiate a deal, and what we ask is that these children, in any peace negotiation, that these children need to be returned as part of any peace negotiation. We are thankful that the First Lady of the United States has taken on this issue personally. She has returned 8 children.
She has, that's great.
And we hope that she returns more. And together with the Lantos Foundation, we're exploring other opportunities to really deepen that connection and allow people to do the right thing and bring all these children home. The
children's ages, is it quite diverse from babies to 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds?
Yes, exactly. There is a documented case of a 4-month-old baby that was taken up until 17. So the range is from 4 months to 17 years old.
Oh my God, so it's quite diverse. So the ultimate goal of submitting it to the UN would be then for the UN as a body to come and deliberate.
Yes, this working group in particular is very interesting because it's 5 legal experts. So the finding that they are arbitrarily detained is very helpful. So in other cases, like in the case of Vladimir Kara-Murza, who we helped free, we submitted a case before the UN working group. This gives a finding to advocates around the world, to governments, right? In the case of single people, sometimes, oh no, they're guilty, oh no, they committed a crime, and this gives them the backing of 5 independent legal experts say, no, they're arbitrarily detained. In this case, what we need is the UN to declare that all these children, we know they've been kidnapped, we know they've been ransomed, and now we want them to say, okay, they're also arbitrarily detained, and there's reparations, there's commissions of inquiry, they can ask the state formally for a list of names, and in the end, what we want them is to be, for them to be returned safe and sound to their heritage, to their names, to themselves and to their families.
Have you traveled to Ukraine and
I haven't myself, but the McCain Institute has led a couple of delegations to Ukraine, high-level delegations, I think more than 3. We have taken business leaders from America. We have had contacts at the highest levels of the Ukraine government to try to carry forth that legacy of Senator McCain, who stood on Maidan Square very famously with Congressman Lieberman and others, calling for a free and independent Ukraine, and that's what we will keep doing until there's no breath left in us, because that is the future of the world right there in Ukraine, and we need to support it.
Absolutely. Yeah. What can people that are watching the show do to help the McCain Institute and your other
there are many ways. There are many ways. Irene mentioned a beautiful one, which is praying for these children. In the case of political prisoners, we write letters. We hope to find some people that we can write to, so learn them names. Vlad Rudenko is one of them. He came back. There are 19,546 children right now who need your help. Call on your representatives to get these children back, and make sure that in any negotiation, and this starts at home, right? Calling on your representatives and realizing that you can use your freedom, even a voice, even a letter, even a candle lit for someone who's held unjustly abroad, helps the cause, because what they want is to not be forgotten, and what the world needs is to never forget these children. So know their names, say their names, pray for them, and let's get them all back.
Because John McCain was, of course, from the military background, have you been working with other NATO countries in terms of trying to collaborate, trying to get these children back?
Not in this specific case, but that's an avenue that we need to explore. But we did work, and interestingly enough, we had a NATO grant, and I was leading that grant on NATO as perceived by young people in NATO European countries. And we had so much trouble trying to get people into this. This was before the invasion, the second invasion in February of 2022. Nobody cared. The young kids didn't care. Adults didn't care about NATO. It was a bygone thing. Suddenly the invasion happened, and everyone wanted to speak to us. And so it was a great moment where we weren't able to say, we told you so, but really trying to, this is important, this is something that is essential for the freedoms that we have in this world, and trying to bolster NATO as probably the most successful defensive alliance in history fighting for freedom. And so NATO should play a role. The Secretary General has been doing great things, and I hope that they keep doing that so that Ukraine is free, all the territory is returned, and during that process, every single children and all the political prisoners and all the POWs are returned as well.
Right. Well, this has been, I really want to thank you. Thank you for the Institute for doing this great work, for all the collaborations that you've managed to organize. We appreciate it here, I know. And
thank you, Dr. Warnke, for giving us a voice.
Absolutely.
And
if people want to reach out to you,
please feel free to follow us.
Go to your website, follow you.
Social media, where they can contact us. We're happy to answer questions and build coalitions, because we need. Irene mentioned RASOM, which is an amazing organization, and we work together with them. And so anything that people want to help with, we're more than welcome to channel those initiatives.
That'd be great. Your website is?
The website is McCainInstitute.org, I believe.
.org, right.
Yeah,
okay.
But a quick Google.
All right.
We'll find
a quick Google, you'll find. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Pedro.
Thank you for having me.
You've been watching The Next Word, and I want to thank both Irene Chalupa and Pedro Pizano for sharing their work, their insights, leadership, and vision for the Ukrainian people and children during this devastating time in the country's history. Advocacy and resilience are deeply interconnected, and global voices are essential in shaping both local communities and global solidarity. We look forward to seeing how the League's efforts, as well as the John McCain Institute, continue to preserve heritage, empower men, empower women, empower children, and strengthen ties between Ukraine and the diaspora. Stay tuned for our next show and be sure to follow MMCTV. I'm Christine Warnke, your host. Thank you again for watching The Next Word.